This next story for today's podcast comes to me from Chris. Says, Jack, a great Leo story from the Marxist state of Maryland. State trooper charged with assaulting arrest, April 27, 2016. Here's the basics of the story. A Maryland state trooper has been arrested subsequent to a grand jury indictment charging him with assault on a man being arrested following a pursuit on I-95 in Hartford County last fall. The trooper is identified as Trooper Martin M. Dunlap, 25. He's charged with 1 count of first-degree assault, 3 counts of second-degree assault, and 2 counts of misconduct in office. Dunlap was indicted yesterday by Hartford County Grand Jury after investigative information was presented by Hartford County State's Attorney's Office. Dunlap turned himself in to state police investigators at Bel Air Barrack just before 1 p.m. today after processing, and he had initial appearance before the court. Commissioner was released on $1,000 in bond. The victim of the assault is identified as Dennis M.D. Donahue, 55, Riverdale, Maryland. Donahue was a driver and sole occupant of a Chevy Captiva that fled from Dunlap and other troopers attempting to stop it on 995 about 11:30 p.m. on October 22nd, 2015. Skipping a little bit here, the investigation found Donahue was stopped on the right shoulder of northbound I-95 near White Marsh. Trooper Dunlap was assigned to JFK Highway Barrack, working patrol in a marked car when he spotted the stopped vehicle, pulled in behind it. The trooper walked up to the stopped car to check on the occupant. The driver, later identified as Donahue, accelerated away. So he did run off, okay? Donahue turned off his vehicle lights and continued north on I-95, refusing to pull over and stop. Additional troopers joined the pursuit. Donahue was not driving at excessive speed, but was driving with his lights out and ignoring emergency lights and sirens of patrol cars. During the pursuit, Donahue's car collided with a marked patrol car by a supervisor from JFK Barrack. Troopers deployed stop sticks and successfully deflated the car's tires. Donahue's vehicle stopped along I-95 south of Belcamp. The investigation found a trooper first class and a corporal who had been in pursuit were the first to reach Donahue and get him out of his car. They reported he was not fighting them but was passively resisting, and they were not immediately able to get him handcuffed. When they were attempting to handcuff Donahue, who was lying on the ground, the troopers reported that Trooper Dunlap, you oath-breaking piece of crap, that's what you are, Dunlap, that Trooper Dunlap intervened and began jabbing the man repeatedly in the abdomen and side with a metal expandable baton. He also struck and injured the hand of one of the troopers trying to handcuff the driver. He hurt one of his fellow officers, The investigation found State Police Corporal grabbed Dunlap's expandable baton in an attempt to stop him from striking Donahue. The corporal reported that the trooper pulled the baton away and continued to jab Donahue. A state police sergeant arriving at the scene forcibly pushed Trooper Dunlap away from Donahue and ended the assault. Donahue did not request or require medical treatment according to the troopers who arrested him. He was taken to Hartford County Detention Center. Troopers who witnessed the actions of Trooper Dunlap reported that they saw to Barrack Command staff that night, and criminal investigation began the next morning. Dunlap was suspended without pay and assigned to administrative duties when the criminal investigations began. State Police criminal investigators presented their complete investigation to Hartford County State's Attorney Joe Casilli. The evidence was presented to Hartford County Grand Jury, and the indictment was issued. Subsequent to his arrest, Dunlap has been suspended without pay. He has been employed by Maryland State Police since July 2013. The Maryland State Police Internal Affairs Unit is also investigating the actions of Trooper Dunlap. I've listened, he said the person who said this is he's listened since 2012. I wish he would have started listening to our podcast earlier. So, here's my takeaway from this. Why did they go after this guy in the first place would be a question you might ask, okay? And as someone who's very skeptical about police motivations, it's a question I would ask. Given what occurred, I'm willing to put it on the shelf to actually examine what these other officers did as an example for what officers should be doing in these situations, not standing by and watching it happen. This man this state trooper, this oath-breaking piece of shit, was hitting this man bad enough that multiple of his co-officers attempted to stop him, and he was so intent on doing it, he actually hit one of the other officers. And instead of saying, it's a thin blue line, we got to look out for each other, the guy was probably a prick anyway, or some bullshit like that, they went to command and said, you got to do something about this guy. Okay, you cops out there that continuously insult the intelligence of people like myself by saying, it's a few bad apples. You know what? When you have a gun, a badge, a taser, pepper spray, and a bunch of other buddies with boots and guns and everything else that will come to your aid and beat the shit out of people, it's not a few bad apples. It's an oath-breaking piece of shit. Okay, you do what these officers did when this shit happens. And we can start having a conversation with you that's real and genuine, and we can possibly start healing this damage that's been done by your actions being made public because of how many people have video now to show the truth. I just saw a video today of an oath-breaking piece of shit police officer in New Jersey who was driving in front of somebody. And the guy behind him was doing, at the time, because you can see on his dash camera, 29 miles an hour. It's pretty slow. In a residential neighborhood, but the speed limit was, I think, 35. So under the speed limit. The officer was driving very, very slow, and then would speed up and slow down. And eventually, when this guy ended up about, a car length and a half behind him, the officer slammed on his brakes. I'll put a link in the show notes and the video notes today. It's another video segment on YouTube for you guys in the podcast, where you can see the actual video of that happening. Okay. And then the cop's reasoning was, you were so close, I thought you were going to hit me, that's why I stopped abruptly. And this was all videoed on camera, and I'll tell you what, I think the reason that one didn't go worse, the cop gave him 3 citations and said, please bring your video to court. Yeah, I bet the guy's going to, because that man had a camera. And I'm going to again suggest that all of us install dash cameras in our vehicles for many reasons, not just for our interactions with law enforcement. But when any interaction begins with law enforcement, you notify them that you are videoing it. I think it's the one thing that can actually de-escalate these situations so they don't turn violent. It won't always work, but at least if it does, you have evidence and you have proof of what's happened. And if they do take, seize, destroy the camera, it makes them look real bad. And they're kind of wising up to the point that, maybe that's not the best idea anyway. But if I'm going to come down on cops that do bad shit, and I always will, and I'll always call them what they are, oath-breaking pieces of shit. That is the only way to describe a person that's given that much authority, that much in control, that much backing, that many privileges that other people don't have. Because if you did what a cop does on a daily basis, you'd be thrown in prison, okay? And then abuses that power. As bad as it is that they have as much power as they do, when they then turn around and abuse the power based on their own rules, after they've swore an oath, when we have cops telling people, what are you, some kind of constitutionalist? And our immediate response to that should be, you mean the document you swore a freaking oath to? That one? Yeah, I'm a constitutionalist. I sure wish you were. And you know me, I prefer a stateless society, but I also expect the people in the one we have that are granted authority to obey the rules that they've set up. I know it's a pipe dream. I know it's never going to happen. But if they can be held accountable when they break it, we should. And I'm going to say one more time, you guys out there that are cops, you follow this example. And maybe we can have a more open and honest discussion with you about the supposed, few bad cops. Stop saying it's a few bad apples. Stop saying it's a few. There are millions and millions and millions of law enforcement officers in this country. And if 10% of them are this type of person, that's a lot. And it's something we need to do something about. And I'll tell you what, a lot of these movements are making it so we can't have this conversation on both sides. This denial that there's a problem, and then this overreach of all cops are scum and things like that. That's a feedback loop from both sides, and we can't have a discussion. I think we need a discussion. And I think law enforcement officers, you need to be honest. You need to step up. And when you see something like this happen, when you see an officer abuse his power, you do something about it. And I'll say this, I know you're taking a risk. If you're not willing to take a risk to defend the rights of the people you're supposed to protect and serve, then I have a solution for you. I have a solution. You see that little badge they give you? You take that shit off, you go turn it in, and you go find something else to do. If you're not willing to risk your career to point out that another freaking officer broke his oath, you are just as bad, and you have no business being in law enforcement at all, period. With that, let's take another one.